a great member of Trinity, and he happens to be married to Zanny. Not that, you know, that's necessary for his identity, but, you know,
Deal.
people might connect. And I'm just thrilled that you're here to share with us about what Lutheran World Relief can do and how maybe we can be greater supporters and help work more with that organization to be Jesus to the world. So whatever you want to do from here, Mike, it's all yours.
All right.
And thank you.
I love that.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing too? What I will say is we're going to try to record this so that people can watch Mike's message later as well.
Okay. Awesome.
So just a kind of a little word of etiquette, if and Mike, you can say more about kind of when you want people to jump in or questions, but if you can find your mute button, if you're on a computer, I just learned that you can just hit the space bar to mute. But if you're on an iPad or something like that, it's usually kind of a little microphone, and you can just make it red, and you can adjust yourselves as needed for muting. And that usually just limits the amount of background noise for the presenter. That sound good?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you all.
Well, let me start by saying it really is an honor to be here, and it's fun because my work, I get to talk about the work that Lutherans do around the world to a lot of people, but it's quite a blessing to with my own family about it, the family Trinity in Stillwater. So that is it's fun to be asked. I appreciate it. I'm going to take about 15 minutes to do an overview of Lutheran World Relief, a short history, and kind of where our strategies have placed us over the last few years, and then also pivot into what does it look like today with coronavirus around the world, especially in those countries where people don't have the same opportunities as we have here. So I'll spend a majority of my time in that area. That's a little more free flow because that's not something that it's still relatively new. So I don't have a bunch of slides. However, I am gonna switch back and forth to some different web pages that show quite a bit of information. And during all of this, I would like it to be as interactive as you would. So if you do have a question, feel free to just interrupt me, because I'm going to probably just kind of keep rolling until somebody brings, or you can raise your hand. I am looking at the pictures. I don't know if I only see 6. I think there's a few more than that. Oh, wow, we have a lot more. Good. So including my wife. Yay. I'm actually in her shed, her studio. This has turned into a beautiful office for me while she's able to visit with spiritual direction directees face to face over the last month. So yeah, if you do have a question, just raise your hand. I do have everybody up now. Well, let me start by saying Lutheran World Relief is really an expression of God's love to the world through what we're asked to do in caring for our sisters and brothers around the world. And I think Pastor Schifferdecker's message today around Sabbath and grace and simplifying and thinking about our neighbors fits in perfectly with what Lutheran World Relief is about and why we started and what we do today. Just real quick, 30,000 foot level. We started as an organization 75 years ago. This year is the 75th anniversary. It started in 1945 following World War II. And it was literally to help our families that were still in Europe that we're dealing with the reconstruction of that whole continent following World War II. We were shipping, you can see the men kind of in the center with the big bags. That was filled with clothing, and they were tossing that into a train car that was going to get shipped over to Germany. You can see on the bottom left side, it's a refrigerator car with 74,000 pounds of Iowa lard. We don't ship lard anymore, but that just shows some of the things that we were doing at the time. To the right of that, you see a quilt that's being shown black and white there, and that still is a big part of what we do, mostly around disaster response. And we have two warehouses around the country. One is right here in South St. Paul, and the other is in the Baltimore, Maryland area in New Windsor, Maryland.
Are other people seeing a screen?
Yeah.
Bridges?
Are you not able to see a screen, Kay and Jerry?
No.
I guess there are some controls in the upper right-hand area. You may want to fiddle with those a little bit. One of them.
Okay. There's something that showed share screen, but we thought that was you, so that you would share a screen, not us. All right, just keep going. Keep going. We'll figure it out.
I think if you hit share screen, you'll be able to see mine.
All right.
Which I'm sharing. But if you take it over, I may ask to have it back.
And
Oh, there we go. Okay.
can I interject?
Good.
Michael
Please.
Paul. You guys probably all know this, but Trinity has a robust quilting ministry, and our quilts go to Lutheran World Relief. And we've been to the warehouse several times, and we track our quilts. Our last batch of quilts went to, oh, I can't remember, some country in Africa. I'll have to look it up. I should have written it down.
I thought it was
Last
Syria.
year,
That's not in Africa.
Sorry.
I thought it was Syria. Is where the last ones went to. Maybe not.
It could have been. Is that you, Marie?
That's Marie.
yes.
Hi, Marie.
Yep. Okay.
So last year we sent over 600,000 quilts and kits around the world. Many of those to countries in, well, all of them in countries of need. A lot of them to places where we've been sending for years and years. So it's an ongoing ministry that Trinity has joined and been a strong part of. So thank you. I know there's a good handful of quilters on the call here today. So thank you for the work that you do around that. This is just a quick overview. This is 2018 number. Around the material resources, which are our quilts and kits, as well as farmers and people that have participated in our health programs. Over 2.8 million people have directly been affected by the work of Lutherans and through Lutheran World Relief. We had projects and distribution in over 42 countries. Long term, we had 133 different projects, and that was implemented by more than 100 partners that we work with, sometimes on a short-term basis, but most of the time it's on a very long-term basis. So we have partners that we've been working with for decades. And when I say partner, what I mean is there's an organization on the ground, say in Nepal, that has long time been working with farmers, and we come in and help to build projects for them, help to fund it, as well as help to bring technology and perhaps different ideas to the table. But they're the ones that totally are driving the programs and implement locally with the farmers. So that's a really unique situation. Lutheran World Relief does it in a way that really builds up the strength of the local communities. so that long term, when Lutheran World Relief is no longer there, which is our goal, that they're a better community because of it. So again, we've been doing this for 75 years. And here's a map of, in 2018, those 42 countries where we've been doing work. Now, some of them we're doing more long-term programs than in others, but most of these countries have LWR staff. Most of those staff are native to the country that they're in. Right now, we have about 1,000 staff around the world, and about 100 of that staff are here in the United States. So we have a big footprint, and we're really called to care for the people that are in the greatest needs. So I'll come back to this because I think it's an important map to get a perspective of what we're doing with coronavirus, but give me a couple minutes and I'll come back to this. As I've shared, when we started 75 years ago, it was around disaster response following World War II. And that is still a big part of what we do is disaster response. Picture in India, on the Nepal-Indian border, there are 3 river basins that come through this area, and they are prone to flooding. We've been doing a lot of projects around this area to help them to prepare for when the floods hit. One of the major issues that happen in these river basins is the people that have the least are the ones that live in the most vulnerable positions. They're the ones that have a house in a floodplain, if they have a house. They're the ones that farm in the areas that are prone to flooding, because people that have means don't live there. They don't farm there. Even though the land may be very fertile, it's very difficult because next year it'll be flooded. So we've been working with these communities up and down this river basin, the 3 river basins, to help them not only learn how to farm in these type of conditions, give them seeds and plants that are both drought and flood resistant, but also help them in preparing for disasters like this so that they know when the river is going to be cresting. You know, to us, it's not, we still have issues with flooding here, even though we know when the St. Croix is going to crest in 10 days or whatever that is. They don't have the technology in these villages. This is remote. These are in the poorest states of India and in Nepal. They don't have government infrastructure in these areas the way that we do. So this is, we've been able to affect over 600,000 people in this river basin through our programming. Just one example of a disaster response that we're doing. And quilts and kits are directly a part of the work that we do, as well as helping people to become more resilient in, as I said, you know, helping them with better plants, helping them with warning systems and so forth. And often when there is a natural disaster that hits, we'll come in and help with housing needs. Like in Nepal, we helped to rebuild over 1,000 houses short term, but also helped to create, they were kits with lumber and metal sheeting to do repair on houses. And there were over 20,000 homes that were helped in this area that we were working with farmers in through that. So all of this is around disaster response. These are some young boys in Tanzania, actually, in Arusha, that received school kits.
Cute.
Yeah, so they are, those little backpacks, those drawstring backpacks are filled with school supplies. And that doesn't seem like a big deal necessarily to us, but when a family is trying to deal with how to put food on their table, most of the people in this area at least are subsistence farmers, so they eat what they grow, and to be able to create the income to send their kids to school and to have all the supplies they need. There's a trade-off. Do they buy food, or do they buy a notebook for their child? So this is very helpful, and we've been doing this for a long time too. So agriculture is another area that we helped in building long-term development and helping communities to become more vibrant economically, to be able to really solve the problem of extreme poverty. This is a cacao farmer in El Salvador. We've done a lot of work in Central America in helping farmers, especially cocoa, which is the product that a cacao turns into over time. Most cocoa, most chocolate in the world is raised by smallholder farmers. So a farmer that just has a small plot of land and has a handful of cacao plants, among other things, but it's a cash crop for them. So if we can help them to grow more and better cacao, it can really affect their lives. In this case, we are helping this cooperative with a drying area. He's in a house right now. It looks kind of like a greenhouse, but it's actually a drying house, so that when it rains, it's not getting the cacao seeds all wet again. And it's also, there's like a screen underneath this, so that's drying from both the top and the bottom. So we work with a lot of cacao farmers around the world. So this one is in El Salvador. We also do, in the agriculture work that we do, is we work with young adults. These are some high school students in El Salvador, and it's kind of like an FFA, a Future Farmers of America. This is a program that's alongside the school in El Salvador, and it teaches them how to graft. This is a cacao tree. They're setting up the tree so that they could graft new seedlings into it, new branches that will produce more cacao. So it's that's a big part. The dealing with global poverty, many people are leaving it. We see it here in the US. Many people are leaving the rural setting to go to the city to find a job or, a way to make a living. But if we can help young adults make a living where they are, their migration to a larger city may not happen. Or as we've seen from Central America into Mexico and the US, people leave because there's nothing that they can do to live where they are, say in El Salvador. So we're trying to address the root cause of migration in areas where we can teach these young adults how to create a livelihood that will sustain them long into the future and help them to raise their families in this in the community where they're from. This is also I'm kind of focusing a lot on El Salvador because we just had a donor trip there and had a chance to visit with a lot of these people firsthand. The young gentleman in the gray shirt is the father of this family. And he went through a certificate program through one of the schools in El Salvador, which taught entrepreneurial skills tied to the chocolate business. And he now makes these bonbons and sells them locally. And he was also invited to go to Paris to share this in a international chocolate forum, which we helped to make that happen. There were a handful of the top farmers in El Salvador that we brought to Paris to introduce them to the chocolate world. So it's creating a market for more of the type of work that these farmers are doing. So really fascinating and very impactful in this area. Another thing around agriculture is we do a lot of work with women in agriculture. More than 50% of the farmers worldwide are actually women farmers, are actually women. However, outside the US, only about 2% of the land is owned by women. So there's a huge discrepancy on rights and access and just having the power, even though they're doing much of the work. So to have women, to give them the power, it incorporates men in our, we call it, this is a bit of jargon, but we call it integrating gender equality. And it requires both men and women to be a part of that, but to show women how to gather in groups and help them to create the strength and power together. Kind of like we dealt with labor unions over the last 100 years. When you get the people that really are at the lower end of society, but you group them together, they have power, and they've made some amazing improvements in their communities and in their regions. This is a group of women in India, not far from, if you remember that slide I showed with the river flooding, from that region, the state of Bihar in India. This is a coffee family. They raise coffee in Uganda. Again, coffee is another one of those crops that 80% of the world population of, or world production of coffee seeds are from smallholder farmers, but they're not given a lot of power. So we helped with cooperatives, especially in Uganda and in Central America. Those are two areas, and in Indonesia, that we've done a lot of work with the coffee farmers to help them to strengthen everything that they do. We call it the value chain, the ag value chain. So again, when the agriculture in an area is strong, the economy is stronger, the schools are stronger, the healthcare is stronger, and we're trying to create that foundation that creates a healthy community in all aspects. And LWR has done that through agriculture. Now, over the last 2 years, we've actually joined forces with IMA World Health. So in January of 2018, our two organizations came together. And now we've created actually a new organization called Chorus International. I have our new logo, and this is a water bottle that they handed out last month when they unveiled our logo. So that's a new parent company. Lutheran World Relief is still a standalone organization. We still do all the things that we've done in the past, but we've partnered and come together with IMA World Health, and they add the next pillar, the pillar of global health along with agriculture and disaster response. And that has really set us up to be in a perfect position today to deal with the coronavirus worldwide. It's really an amazing thing that we started this 2 years ago, and today it's fortuitous that we have this opportunity to have an amazing impact in the world through this. I was sharing, I guess I got ahead of myself. This is another coffee farmer in Uganda. He is one of our partners in a coffee buying company that LWR purchased in Uganda to help be more transparent and bring higher profits to the farmers. And in us only buying 5%, but having a more transparent transaction, it actually affected the pricing on 90% of the buying that happened in this region. of the Mount Elgon area in Uganda. So the work of LWR is having an impact more than just the direct people that we're working with. So now, I don't know if you can see this very well. I created this slide this morning. I'm gonna shift into kind of our coronavirus work. But if you can see, this is a meme that I saw last month. And it, you know, there's a lot of North Dakota roots here in Minnesota. Actually, Zanny's father grew up in North Dakota, and it says here, North Dakota practicing social distancing since 1889. and I bring this up because there is a lot of space in some of the areas in Africa that the coronavirus isn't going to have as big of an impact as in the larger cities, kind of like what we're seeing in the United States. And let me see here. I hit a button that, there we go. So I don't know if you can see this very well. I'm going to actually zoom in on something in just a minute. But this is the Johns Hopkins map of the coronavirus outbreak. And this was, if you see down in the lower right hand, I just updated this morning before 8 a.m. But this shows total confirmed cases around the world. And you can see Europe is very red. The United States is totally red. China is a little red, a little bit in Southeast Asia. And Africa has some hot spots. You also see South America does too. But Africa is really the focus that we're having on through Lutheran World Relief and IMA World Health, because we're expecting in some of those bigger cities in Africa, because they don't have the ability to social distance as we do, that they will struggle much more than we do here in the US. They just don't have the medical services. They don't have the protective gear that we have, even though we talk about not having it. And I love that we're doing masks and so forth. In Africa, literally, there are clinics that have nothing like that. The health workers are blindly helping others that may put themselves in a much higher risk than even our health workers here in the US, or even any of the Western med clinics, say Europe or other parts of the world. So I just show this because it gives you a little idea. Africa is not at that level, but they are expecting with models to show that the bigger cities in Africa will get hit very hard. This is not a seasonal flu. This is not something that will just go away. We'll see waves of this through the world, and I think you'll see most dramatic in Africa when things all come together. But going back that one slide, it does help that there are plenty of areas in Africa where it's built-in social distancing. I've had an opportunity to be in Kenya. I was there a little over a year ago, and it's a rural area. For a lot of the people, they're farmers, and they'll be able to continue to work in their fields and with their livestock and so forth. But the marketing part will be a challenge. How do they trade and get things to market without coming in close contact with others? So that will be a challenge. John, you had asked earlier about that woman on the front screen that I had, the coffee farmer. The coffee buying company, I was chatting with our director of that. It's called Ground Up Investing. His name is Kenneth. Kenneth, he is an LWR employee. He knows that he'll get paid, or he figured he would. He shared this story on Thursday with us. He actually went home for 12 days to see his family. His family was about a 4-hour drive away from where his office is. But there were 12 women that work in the coffee processing area. that are not paid by LWR. They have their own, they get paid basically hourly. And if they don't work, they don't get paid. So, and if they don't get paid, they don't put food on the table. So it's, I know there's a lot of people around the US that are in a similar situation, but it's just different when there are no safety nets. There's no unemployment insurance. There's no refrigerator full of food, or a grocery store down the road that has everything that you need that you can buy on credit. It really is, for those people, it is the way that they're able to survive. And so it's a tough balance between safety and caring for your family. Kenneth said it's really difficult to see that. They are doing what they can to stay separated. These workers were basically going through coffee beans to make sure that the quality was good so that it could be sold at a higher price. That's what they were working on. So kind of to go back to our map and show you where it is that we're working, and show where that the levels of where coronavirus is. I don't want to get anyone dizzy here going back and forth, but really some of the areas that are the hardest hit in South America, Central America, and Africa, that's where we're doing work. Out of the 42 projects that we did last year, long-term projects, we've been able to turn some of the technology and work that we are doing. As an example, we're doing a large project in Latin America, 6 different countries, working with coffee and cocoa farmers. They use their smartphone. Most of them have a smartphone. It's interesting. If you've traveled anywhere over the last couple of years in the developing world, even though they may struggle with putting food on the table, they still have a smartphone. We have an app that teaches them how to be better farmers, how to be a farmer as a business. And now we're using that same technology to teach people on their phone how to appropriately social distance and wash your hands and care for your family if they're sick, or what are the signs, all the information that is important to get out there. We are able to do that through the mobile cocoa platform that we were using, that over 30,000 cocoa farmers in Central America and Latin America are using. In Iraq, we work with farmers that have been dealing with internal struggle. ISIS ripped through this one area. It's actually ancient Nineveh. That area is mostly Christian and other religious minorities in Iraq, and they were persecuted, and many of their towns in that region, Nineveh is kind of like a county, most of their churches and businesses and buildings, a lot of those were destroyed. Since they've come back into that area over the last year and a half, this region of about 50,000 people, there's now about 10,000 that have come back. We've been working with them and helping to be better farmers. And they are helping their neighbors who may have not be able to work because of coronavirus or are at a higher risk. They're sharing, all the farmers are getting together and creating farmer baskets that they're giving to these neighbors that are isolated. So a fabulous program that they actually put together themselves. They were grateful that they were able to create the type of livelihoods through Lutheran World Relief, and they were able to take that and share it with their neighbors. It's been a fascinating story. And we're gonna do actually a bigger piece on that coming up in the next couple months. So we have a lot of work that we've been doing. And I guess I'd like to just let me see if I'm missing any other slides here. No, that's my ending slide back there. One of the questions I've had a lot, or people state, I don't know what I can do to help my sisters and brothers in Africa or in Central America or in Syria. I just don't know what to do. Well, we're there. So supporting Lutheran World Relief and making quilts and kits, in buying coffee, and I'll show you a little bit about this, but we have a direct-to-farmer coffee buying program. By giving to Lutheran World Relief, all of those things, you are directly helping our sisters and brothers in some of the most marginalized countries and communities around the world. So we are just an expression of our Lutheran faith around the world, and I am blessed to be a part of it and to be able to share it with you all, and would be happy that if there are any questions. I tried to keep an eye and see if there were people raising their hand. I didn't notice that. But if it's John, I see your hand up in the jungle.
Sheila does too.
Okay, I didn't see that. Thank you.
My question is, are you related in any direct way with the ELCA, or do you support all Lutheran churches?
Yeah, thanks, John, for asking that. So the ELCA, we are cousins, I would call it that. We're part of the same family. We were started 75 years ago with 5 different Lutheran church bodies that came together and said we should work together, and through that created Lutheran World Relief. 3 of those 5 church bodies are now what is the ELCA. So they help to create us, and we do a lot of work together. They help to fund a lot of our projects, and if they're in an area where we're not and something needs to be done, we'll work directly with them. As an example, in Puerto Rico, when Hurricane Maria went through there 3 years ago, they have church. There's the Florida Bahama Synod includes churches in Puerto Rico. So they had a footprint there. They had relationships. They had people there. So our first step was to help fund and stand alongside them in that way. We have a bigger footprint as far as staff all around the world. So a lot of times they'll end up partnering with us just because we have the expertise and the relationships in a local area. So we do a lot of work together. We are 2 separate organizations, but do a lot of work together.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Sheila, you had a question.
No.
You not have a question. Okay.
No. Thank you.
I have a question. I have 2. This is Penny. One is, with working in El Salvador, how is the gang and drug cartels and things like that affecting work, and what do you do about that? And then also, I'll give you my other question too, is do you work with any of the Native American populations, that the reservations or anything like that in the US or even in other areas of the Central Americas?
Yeah, thank you. The gang violence, the drug violence in Central America is very difficult. And I guess it gets all the way, it does go down into South America too. It is, I guess the way that we've been able to do the work that we do is because our staff are locals. And so they're able to navigate that better than if we were sending a bunch of people from the US down there to do it. But it is a struggle. I mean, it's 2 steps forward. Maybe this month it's only 1 step back. Maybe next month it'll be 3 steps back. But trying to create that infrastructure to have something that creates an economic engine that is a legitimate engine, agriculture.
Okay.
And that is, it's taken decades to get to where we are, and sadly it'll take decades to get out of it. We feel like the way that we're doing it with working with young adults and entrepreneurship and schooling is one of the strongest ways to do that, so that people don't feel like they need to go into a gang or do something just to feed their family that maybe they wouldn't otherwise. But that's a big struggle. As far as Native American, our scope is outside the U.S., including sovereign nations in the U.S. area. So we don't do anything directly in that arena. We need to also be invited. Our work is as a non-governmental organization. So the countries that we work in, we've been asked to work in. Some of them we've been in for a long time, and so we're kind of a part of the landscape, and some of them are relatively new that we're working in. But we also take a look and see, one example is Haiti. We look and see what other organizations are in that area, and if there are other people doing what we do, we don't need to step in there. We've stepped away from Haiti for the most part. We're not doing long-term economic development work, livelihoods work in Haiti anymore. We are doing some health work, but that is because we felt like we were doing something that nobody else was doing. And so we try to be, we try and fill in a gap where some other organizations or government or something isn't doing it. And we've been recognized as doing that really well. So it's a good, yes, John.
I assume you're non-denominational in the countries that you serve. For example, you'll serve Muslim countries or Hindu countries, and is there any, say, conflict when you bring in Christian values, or how do you approach it from a religious point of view?
Yeah, John, that is a really good point. And I've been doing this long enough, I kind of forget that that's a big part of, of why people give to us in the first place, why we do what we do. But as far as where the help goes, we do not, it does change from place to place, but for the most part, we follow the Red Cross. I forget the term that they use. I was going to say Bill of Rights, but that's not the right term. But basically, we follow what international relief organizations do. They cannot have a specific religion that they cater to directly. What we're doing is it's an expression of our Lutheran faith, the love of God, to go and care for our sisters and brothers, whoever they are, whatever their religious belief is, whatever they practice. So we care for anybody. Now, I say there's some places where that's a little different, especially where there's a strong Lutheran presence in that country. As an example, Tanzania has more Lutherans than the US. We do a lot of work with the Lutheran Church in Tanzania. So that, in that case, we will be very forward with the fact that we're Lutheran. And now that being said, there's many countries where we can't lead with that, and we don't. So it really, the Lutheran part is the US aspect in our expression to caring for our sisters and brothers around the world. Thank you for that question, John. That's a really important one to understand.
When I see like that chocolate family, they were selling like a retail product.
Yes.
Why can't the coffee growers do that? And instead of just selling the beans as a commodity, say somehow package it in those little pods that we put in our machines
Those are
and
wasteful.
get more value for their coffee than they would otherwise. Keep it, in other words, more go direct as
Right.
opposed to all the middlemen.
Well, and that's, we created, John, I need to pay you when we get done here. We have created.
That's $100 an hour, please.
Okay.
Here's show and tell.
I'll get you that. We do have a, oh yeah, look at Zanny. If you can see Zanny's picture, her video is showing the LWR coffee. It's farmers market coffee. It is 100% sourced directly from Nicaragua. She's my beautiful helper.
Xana White. This is the coffee we drink. I mean, this is an open
Yep.
pack. This is our coffee, and it's fabulous.
So it is.
Where do we
You
buy
can
it?
buy it. Yeah. So you buy it right now. What we've done is put it online. So at lwr.org/coffee, you can create a subscription if you want. You can buy it one time. You can buy it 12 bags at a time, which is the wholesale amount. That'd be one case of those 12-ounce packages. We also have a 5-pound package, and we have different versions of that. So that is kind of that retail direct, John, that you're talking about, that we do not have it in a cake cup, but for those people that have a Keurig or a coffee maker like that, you can find one of those little mesh cups and put in your own ground coffee from this type of thing.
Thank you.
Mike, can I read what's on the back?
Please.
It says, just like a local farmers market, LWR Farmers Market Coffee connects you and the farmers who grow your coffee. Lutheran World Relief has partnered with Thrive Farmers, THRIVE, to produce this delicious line of coffee sourced directly from farmers who participate in LWR projects. With LWR Farmers Market Coffee, farmers aren't just suppliers of coffee beans, they're partners in the coffee business. Farmers receive a good upfront price for their beans, along with a share of the profits from the sale of their coffee. Plus, for every pound of coffee purchased, 80 cents goes back to LWR to help more coffee farmers around the world lift themselves out of poverty. Thank you for supporting farmers and their families. And it's yeah. I don't know where this particular one came from, but anyway, that's it. That's the coffee.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Well, what else did I tell you needed to ask?
So Trinity is involved with the quilts, that I know. Are there any other aspects that Trinity is involved in with Lutheran World Relief?
Yeah, the mission committee has shared dollars with LWR. So each year they give to places, and LWR has been a part of that in the past. You know, LWR is not set up to have like short-term missions or short-term trips like we've done. Say I've done several times to the Mexico mission or like a habitat type of a thing. We're just not set up that way in our structure. So there's not another way like that other than just sharing the story with others. The quilts and kits and buying coffee, those are really the ways to, and now doing masks. I know Trinity has a mask program that you all are doing locally here. We are, as an organization, asking for 75,000 masks that are going to go with personal care kits. which include like a towel and a bar of soap and toothbrush and toothpaste. That most of those will go to places that are part of a natural disaster. So a face mask will go with that personal care kit.
So getting the word out of what you do is important.
It really is.
So are there things that you have that can help us do that more? You know, publications or things like that that can be, I don't know, passed around, or however communication can be sent out. Is there something in that regard that we can do?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, Penny. Probably our most powerful way to get the word out is through our webpage and our blog. So lwr.org has a lot of resources, including some of the best videos that are out there. Our communications and marketing team have a really, really good group of people that put out things that help to share the story of LWR around the country. So there are resources for congregations and for small groups that can be used at any time. It's again, lwr.org is the best place for those resources.
A final question for me.
Yeah.
Is your organization concerned with climate change, in that you might be serving people that might be flooded in the future if we continue to raise the ocean levels? And how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So yes, that's a big, so I think you can see, this is the lwr.org front page. And what we do, you can see agriculture and climate are the two top things. Climate has been incorporated basically into everything that we do, because anytime that climate changes, it usually hurts the most vulnerable the most.
Mm-hmm.
It's those coffee farmers in Central America that are the ones that can't grow their coffee anymore because they've had a 3-year drought. It's the family in Central Kenya that can't grow anything because they haven't had water for in their normal seasons, or they have too much today and nothing for the next 12 months. Or like that river basin in on the Indian Nepal border. All of those are examples of how climate affects the most vulnerable in the worst way. That is a big part of what it is that we do. So this is I wanted to show this to you, that climate is a big part of all of the things that we do. It actually is the reason that most of the emergencies end up happening.
Is there a different screen you wanted to show us, Mike? There's a prayer up right now.
Oh, is that the one that you're seeing? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought, let's see. You wanted to see yourself?
Now we see icebergs.
There we go.
There, okay.
Now you see the lwr.org page.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So what we do, agriculture and climate is an aspect of many of the things that we do. So
That's cool.
Very cool.
Now, I was just going to wrap things up with that prayer that was on. Let me get back to that. All right, you get to see yourself again.
Eek. Eek.
On a daily basis, so we've been working from home, the US-based staff, we've been working from home for the last month and a half, well, 5 weeks. And since we started working from home full time, we at 11:30 Central Time every day get together for what we call our spiritual pause. And one of the things we start by saying is that whatever you believe in, wherever you are, everybody is welcome, and we respect everybody. That being said, we are going to share some Christian readings through the Bible, as well as reflection and prayers. And we always end with this prayer that is on the board here. And we all say it in unison, and we all take our Zoom off of mute. So we all hear each other, even though it's really kind of awkward. There's a real beauty in being able to hear everyone kind of in and out through this technology. So I ask that you all unmute and that we all read this together. This will be our ending here. Oh God,
You
you
have
have called your
servants,
servants
adventures
of which
of
we
which we
cannot
cannot
see
see
the
the
ending,
ending.
by
By
paths as yet untrodden,
Through
through perils unknown. Give us faith to go out with
good courage,
Courage,
not knowing where we go, but only
only
that
that
your
your
hand
hand
is
is
leading
leading
us and your love supporting us.
us.
Amen.
That's
Thank you.
That's the
beautiful.
Holden Village prayer, by the way. Just
Oh,
a
is
little,
it?
that's the Holden Village prayer.
I didn't know that.
It's in the hymnal too.
Cool.
Well, Mike, thanks for doing this. It was great.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. This was awesome. I learned a lot.
Good.
This was really good.
Questions, really good questions too.
It was very
Just an update for next week. We are going to have a thing on doubting Thomas. So you can bring all your doubts.
And a little plug for the value of good questions. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we're looking to the fall and some of the hopes that we have for getting a broad base of the whole congregation's questions and wonderings and can I ask that?
So get your questions out there. You can send them to me or Pastor Peter or share them on any Sunday morning adult forum, and so that we can prepare for this fall to discuss questions. It doesn't mean we're going to have answers, but join together in our wondering.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Everyone have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Gorgeous. Enjoy.
Bye, everybody.
Okay.